Time to view the days of when Aardman made their first full-length feature film.
Those were up, and they did.
More smarts, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this movie review is going to be for a stop-motion movie, and it's for one that came out to kickstart the 2000s decade. And it's for a film from, believe it or not, Aardman that had actually been a studio way before they released this, except they were known for their short films in the Wallace and Gromit series around then. They hadn't made feature-length films then. By this year, they finally made their first full-length feature film to go to theaters and be actually an actual film and not a short. And that film is going to be for none other than 2000's Chicken Run. It is directed by Peter Lord and Nick Park. So what's the plot? Well, having been hopelessly repressed and facing the eventual certain death of the chicken farmer they were held, a rooster named Rocky and a chicken there at the farm named Ginger decide to rebel against the evil Mr. and Miss Tweety, the farm's owners. Rocky and Ginger then lead their fellow chickens on a great escape from the murderous farmers and their farm of doom. So how was this film made? Well, Chicken Run was first conceived in 1995 by Aardman co-founder Peter Lord and Wallace Gone creator Nick Park. According to Park, the project started as a spoof of the 1963 film The Great Escape. Chicken Run was also Aardman's first feature-length production, and it would be executive produced by Jake Eberts, and Nick Park and Peter Lord, who ran Aardman, directed the film. Pathé, in 1996, agreed to finance the film, and putting their finances into script development and model design. Then, when it came to the other studio that would distribute it to theaters worldwide, DreamWorks Pictures came on board in 1997. They beat out other studios that were planning to see if they could distribute the film like 20th Century Fox or Warner Brothers or Disney, and they largely won because of the perseverance of DreamWorks co-man Jeffrey Katzenberg. As a company, they were eager to make their presence felt in the animation market in an attempt to compete with Disney's dominance of the field. That's why DreamWorks was, of course, started. 1998, and this was after they made their first two feature films, The Prince of Egypt and Ants. And they were coming out for a new kind of animation technique to further launch them into the industry. So after the film was shot and marketed, Chicken Run would go on to be released to the public in theaters on June 23rd, 2000. And how was it after years of hard work? This film was a critical and commercial success. Because for a stop-motion movie, it grossed over $220 million worldwide, and even to this day, it is still the highest-grossing stop-motion animated film in history, and it's never been surpassed. At the time, this film was also, before Shrek and many other films took over it, it was DreamWorks Animation's most successful release. But Shrek took over the following year. And of course, Netflix released a sequel that's going to get a rant called Dawn of the Nuggets last year in December. Yeah, I don't want to talk of the sequel. Let's talk of the one that's good, the first film. As for my reaction to the first Chicken Run movie, well, what can I say? I've always enjoyed Chicken Run ever since I first saw it when I was a kid. This was a studio's first full-length film whose famed career had started with 3 short films featuring the characters called Wallace and Gromit, one being an inventor, and the other, Gromit, being his dog who doesn't have a mouth, or never speaks. And it's not even a shock that no other stop-motion film beat its box office record ever since then. And you have a pretty great little plot for a film. It's kind of like The Great Escape, where this time you're set in a chicken farm in Yorkshire sometime around the 50s. And our plucky heroines face a lifetime of hard labor laying for the farmers. And if their performance was not up to par, they faced a chop, or the death penalty. Ginger, one chicken, is making her way to the top of the pecking order and constantly attempts jailbreak after partial jailbreak, but success is less than forthcoming. at all. Because usually she'll get sent to the dumpster, which is solitary confinement. And then, of course, one day, a rooster named Rocky, the Rhode Island Red, apparently somehow able to fly from Ginger's point of view, ends up landing in their chicken farm, and the chickens look to him to help bust this chicken coop out of prison, but Rocky's not what he may appear to be. And yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the film. You can literally imagine the subject matter made for the perfect salutes to all those classic World War II escape movies. References which about throughout, like from Ginger tossing a baseball, like in The Great Escape, whenever one of our main leads gets sent to the cooler or the coal bunker, pretty much. The Fowler's insistent ramblings about his old RAF days. When it comes to the lead characters of this film, like the lead characters are deep and enduring enough for you to care about what happens to them. Like, even though it can be a little stereotypical at times, the interaction between them is fluid and believable, and all the more amazing. Especially considering that when voice recording for the film, one of the voice actors, Mel Gibson, had never even stepped foot in the same recording studio as the other actors. He read his lines in his stew in America instead, which is actually pretty crazy, and actually pretty creative. The supporting cast also provide plenty of humor too, and the main villain of the film is Tweety, substitutes pretty nicely for the Nazi camp commandant. And just about a majority actually compare the character of Miss Tweety to pretty much our man's equivalent of Hitler. Except Hitler towards chickens, basically. The way she runs the chicken farm, she runs it like an actual prison death camp. Whereas if the chickens don't lay her any eggs, they're dead. And it's basically not a farmer you really want to get on the bad side of. And honestly, her voice actress, Mariah Richardson, actually does make her pretty intimidating and actually pretty frightening if you're a chicken. And the most interesting thing Chicken Run also does is it completely steers away from animation itself. Like, instead of making an animation full of the CGI effects, Chicken Run went and did it another new creative way, not like Toy Story did. It went old school style and it turned into a stop motion animated feature. And I really like this kind of aspect of the thing. Like, this was 5 years after Toy Story changed the animation. Chicken Run further even more changed it briefly. And it never wanted to be what others had been. It's like watching something different around the time this came out from an animated film. The voice acting was really well done. And easily, I think the best of the characters is the character Rocky is voiced by Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson really gives the character his signature voice by adding his charismatic attitude and fun. And the supporting cast all do an equally great job, and there's definitely no complaints in this department. The plot was definitely quite different. Like, in the plays where the chickens are imprisoned, literally resembles a concentration camp used back in the Holocaust. With the way it's set up, all the chicken huts are set up like prison huts, and you see how all the fences like prison gates. And usually, whenever Ginger tries to escape, Mr. Tweety, who would pretty much be the equivalent of a prison guard, catches her, usually throws her into solitary confinement in the opening montage. Whenever she tries to escape. Yeah, it's like pretty much like a prison camp, and Tweety's pretty much the warden, the prison warden. And our main voice actress for Ginger, Julia Sawala, from Absolutely Famous, like, she does a wonderful job voicing Ginger, our actual technically main character, or technically her main heroine of the film. Like, also as well. I don't think anybody does a bad job in this film, and this film really has something for everyone. The soundtrack's also great, though not outstanding, and the animation is flawless, and the character development is really well done. Not only for the two main characters, but a fair amount of the supporting cast as well. Like, it's great to see the characters change completely from what they were like in the beginning to what they're like at the end. And while usually many could see that the opening montage of the film is supposed to instill us the great idea of hope that they all have. Like, the way they depict the entire setting shows that we're to believe that hope is futile and escape is impossible. Like, the very opening shot shows us the point of view of the whole chicken coop, which is shaped like the prison camp. Like, you are about to find out what these chickens go. You do not know what you are going to watch, and you'll be surprised to find out that the whole grounds of barbed wire, the rows of cabins, a guard with terrifying dogs under the moonlight is literally a chicken farm. And it lends to the comedic effect in a way, but more importantly, leaves you with this clear message. No chickens can leave that place. Anytime, like, while Ginger's somehow able to escape in the beginning, the other chickens are too big to fit through the hole she dug, and so she has to kind of go back to make sure that the rest of them don't get caught by the guard dogs, and to basically let herself be caught so that her friends don't get caught by them, and also it actually already instills her as a great character because she decides to give up her opportunity of escape so basically the guard dogs don't eat her friends. But it's not overly dark. I mean, you still have some clever use of comedy to distract you from the underlying hopelessness the characters face, and it's very masterfully done at the best times. Easily the best part comes at the end of the first montage when the comedy fades. Like, suddenly nothing is funny anymore. And of course, like, once we get that opening montage, we get to a roll call scene where they're forced to see how the farmers count how many eggs the chickens have laid. And if they've laid 0 in 5 days, they're off to die. And we get to see how that's all done. Right here. One of the chickens had laid 0 eggs during that whole entire week. And so the farmers pick that chicken up and they take to the chop, and from what we know, her head gets cut off and she gets eaten for dinner that night. It's pretty much, yeah. And from there on, nothing gets funny after that. And from a moment there's nothing. They actually don't crack a single joke in this whole scene. They don't make any funny lines at all. They play the scene very seriously. There's nothing. They're not trying to distract you with anything funny. They're actually trying to portray how, while the opening montage has comedy in it, literally, once you see how the chickens go through when they're not trying to escape, and why they're trying to escape, you know that life there is hell for these hens. And that's why they're trying to leave. And that's why Ginger wants to escape. And Chicken Run's main strength is that they don't feel that they always have to use obvious jokes or sight gigs most of the time to make you laugh. They're not afraid to put in references that few people below their teens are able to pick up on. They just wait till you catch at least 1 or 2 nods towards one of the more well-known Mel Gibson movies of the past, and once you get to Mel Gibson's character. And some of the characterizations are fairly expected. You don't really go over the top, though, and you help liven things up. And visually, when it comes to the visuals of the movie are top-notch. And you know you're watching a wax animation of days of CGI graphics just makes things more interesting. The characters all look familiar for the first moment. If you are familiar with the shorts of Wallace and Gromit you watched and then watching this film, there's lots of little details everywhere. And you can definitely see that all the hard work that went into this flick. And those little details really make you chuckle. There's definitely a lot more to see that catches the eye of the first viewing. And one last thing to touch on Chicken Run, it's its underlying Britishness. And despite attracting American interest, it's clear Aardman's not really pushing producing something contrary to their vision. Rocky is a major character, and it doesn't save him from being torn down as a stereotypical American hotshot. And the rest of the chickens, because this is set around the London area, they're wonderfully British, and they're not afraid to use different accents and mannerisms. So in addition to the laughs, you get a distinct charm you never get outside of a British production. Usually, yeah, and when how the film begins, you know you're about to be in for something grand. It's like we start off we meet our villain. We kind of meet our villains first. So the Tweedies, they're the couple. They run this farm in England. Miss Tweedy's like the brains and temper, and Tweedy's kind of the slow and handles the manual work and is kind of the guard in a way. And the coop gets run in the style of this World War II camp. The chickens are accountable there for the number of eggs they have to lay daily. But one chicken what Ginger is we all know, is trying to escape to flee the coop. And she gets aided by this contraband smuggled duo of 2 rats who are named Nick and Fletcher. But however, none of her escape plans work because they're not really well thought out. Most of the time, so because of her not really well thought out escape plans, she's always the last one left. If the chickens ever go back in the coop, she'll end up being the last one left out, and so she's always caught by Mr. Tweety and his dogs, and gets thrown into solitary confinement numerous times in the beginning. Like throughout the beginning scene, you see how these hens try to escape. They try tunneling, they make runs for the gates, they try disguising themselves as a scarecrow-like look-alike of Miss Tweety, and that of course does not work out at all. Like the first attempt we see is Ginger tries to dig a hole, but the hole's not big enough because this one other chicken named Bunty, the more kind of little rough-tempered one of the hens, tries to go through, but she can't fit through. So yeah, and that's where we actually meet our villains right there. It's when Ginger goes back to keep Bunty quiet to avoid being discovered. Mr. Tweety and the dogs discover them, and so Ginger tries to flee and hide the door, but the dogs corner her. The one dog actually has an intimidating moment where Ginger tries to fend it off with a garden gnome. The dog just eats half the gnome off, literally. And then, of course, we get introduced to Miss Tweety, who sees Ginger as outside. Command tells Mr. Tweety to deal with the chicken outside the fence, and then, of course, once Miss Tweety closes the door, Mr. Tweety gets mad at Ginger, throws her into solitary confinement, and then yells at the chickens to keep inside the coop, and that's where our movie starts. And we see that montage of all the escape attempts, and then we see then the comedy fades after the montage is over, and we see how the hell the chicken's life is, and it shows exactly why they're trying to leave the farm. It's because they have to live a hell life where if they don't lay any eggs, they get sent to the chop and they get eaten that night. And then, of course, that night after finishing eating the chicken they killed off, Miss Tweety realizes her farm is failing in making profits, and she reads a catalog on this ambiguous method of increasing profits at her farm. And that, of course, makes Ginger realize there's something wrong, and she attempts to convince the other hens to speed up their efforts to escape, but the hens are just losing all hope because they've been caught numerous times. And they realize the only escape route is to go over the fence, and that's something the chickens cannot do. Then that same night, Ginger is now depressed because there's no other hope. And then, of course, she sees this red rooster somehow, apparently from her point of view, can fly over their fence and accidentally ends up crashing into the coop. And that's where we meet Mel Gibson's character, Rocky. The introduction of the character Rocky is both one of my favorite and least favorite moments of the film. His arrival and the belief the other chickens that he can fly leads the character to have hope that as an audience they all know could be pointless. And the chickens believe their situation, though, has changed entirely. We as an audience know the chickens cannot fly, and they have false hope. But it works to enforce the established message: escape is impossible, but also importantly it raises tensions. So when the hens meet the new arrival, they fawn over the new arrival. He introduces himself as Rocky, the lone free ranger. They keep him hidden from the Tweeties because a circus owner is looking for him. And so the farmers realize he's vulnerable. They try going looking for Rocky. They can't find him, and Ginger is initially suspicious, and then until she finds the first half of a poster with Rocky on it. So she shows it to the other hens, and it explains how he came into the farm. She claims that he can fly, and attempts to convince Rocky to help her and the other hens escape and teach them how to fly. But since Rocky's wing is injured, he cannot shoot them immediately. And so, Rocky ends up putting them through a funny set of exercises that seem to have no purpose, while assuring them that all the chickens are making progress, even though they're not. When he tries making them fly off this little hut, they all just end up piling on each other, because we see, when it's Ginger's turn, at first maybe it seems like it's working, but she realizes she's going nowhere, and there's a whole pile of chickens that end up tumbling down. Yeah, we got some funny moments, and even some funny lines too, like, it takes hard work, perseverance, and hard work. You said hard work twice. That's because it's hard work. Yeah, while it's definitely not a deep film, it does present some mature issues like incarceration, death, hope versus despair, friendship, perseverance. And while having fun, it provides some exercise in considering values, greed, justice, and freedom. Then, of course, during their training montage, at first another truck arrives and says Rocky hides again because once he thinks it's the circus, again, even though it's not actually the circus, it looks like a different truck. It's actually this truck that's carrying a large machine that the Tweedies have ordered. And so after the machine arrives, Mr. Tweedy begins to assemble it. And at the same time, around the same time, after one other failed training montage where it's a thing called thrust now, like that Nick and Fletcher present Rocky when they meet Rocky. They try having Bunty try to fly through a fence, and at first it seems like it works, but of course Ginger can see and realize the fence is there and it's just going to fail. And so Bunty is launched back all the way to Nick and Fletcher, lands on them, and yeah, and he kind of get a little roll. And then their thing that Nick and Fletcher were watching the thing on is crumbled to a ball, and it kind of rolls back like a bowling ball and smashes like bowling pins, which is just also kind of funny. And then, of course, after this whole scene, at first the chicken scene gets another egg roll call. One of the chickens, Babs, is actually scared because she didn't lay any eggs, so she thinks she's about to die during that moment. And then it turns out it's not an egg collecting, and it turns out Miss Tweedy was measuring Babs and orders food rations doubled. And the chickens are happy about this, but Ginger knows something is up, and he unwisely proclaims, and she already knows that's clearly the Tweedies' attempt is to fatten them up for something that's actually much worse going to happen, and it causes a panic. And now we see the machine is now complete. And of course, we see that it's a pie machine. We get another funny line, like here, where it's a pie machine, you idiot. Chickens go in, pies come out. What kind of pies? Apple. My favorite. Chicken pies, you insolent. So, Mr. Tweedy wants to know how it works, and Miss Tweedy makes him go get a chicken to see how it works. And of course, Mr. Tweedy knows exactly which chicken he wants to test it out on, and it's of course Ginger to get payback for all those escape attempts getting him in trouble, likely. So Mr. Tweedy takes Ginger to the machine for the first test, and Rocky ends up following Ginger to the machine to go rescue her and sabotage it. So Rocky then sabotages the machine in a very creative scene where we see the inside of the machine, the dough getting flattened, and then the dough getting shaped like an actual pie crust. And of course, we see a gravy machine like shoots gravy into the pies or puts vegetables in the pies first. Then Rocky clogs it with a carrot. And then of course the pie gets sealed with the actual remainder of it. And then put in the oven. They escape the oven. And they realize their sabotaging has broken the machine, so they escape. And of course, like Mr. Tweedy's trying to turn it off, but Miss Tweedy just simply unplugs it. And first he's like, "Look, I fixed it," and we can see like Miss Tweedy smash a pie in his face, right there. After that, like now the Tens have more time to work on their escape. And as the movie develops, like the viewer understands more and more the hope and motion of these clay chickens attempt to alter their way of life to one that is free of the oppressive regime given to them. With the addition of the American hero Rocky, we start to see the propagandist type of actions in this film. While the American hero ideals disprove, the character is still shown to have heart and the ability to save the people, demonstrating a satirical view of American ideals and values, and he still shows how you're able to help others and move past themselves when it's most valuable to others. And with that being said, though, as much as we've already talked the good stuff, after Ginger's rescue, and it shows all the chickens about the whole chicken pies plan that the farmers have in store for them. And her and Rocky finally do start to bond more because throughout the movie we see them not getting along with each other well. And they have their first good moment here, and after this moment, sadly, this is kind of the bit I'm not a fan of the most. And this is where our first bad collide with the film happens. It's once again, they go the liar revealed cliche. Except, it's not done over obvious. Like, I would say it's not nearly as bad as how they do it in Bug's Life. Because in Bug's Life, it's really obvious it's going to happen the minute this part starts. Here, it's somewhat done more subtle. Where around this part, like, an old Fowler, the older rooster, that Rocky had to share his hut with, he gives Rocky his respect for rescuing Ginger and gives his Old Royal Air Force badge in tribute. But of course, Rocky knows that he's actually not a flying rooster, and decides he needs to leave the other half of the poster for the hens to find out the truth about him, and flees the farm the next day. While the farm, or likely flees overnight while the farmers are still asleep. He leaves behind Ralph Fowler's medal in the second half of the poster, and it turns out, of course he can't fly. He's a stunned rooster. And the only reason he flied was because he got shot out of a cannon. So, yeah. And like Lyra revealed, usually, the revelation just outrages the chickens. And then we get a fight that literally starts with either Bunty smashing Babs' knitting, and then Mac, this one other hen, this Scottish hen, that attempts to literally start fighting Bunty, but then Fowler tries to break up the fight. It goes on and on about his medals, and then Bunty gets overly pissed about it, throws his medal in the mud, and that makes Fowler furious. He whacks Bunty on the head with a stick, and that makes Bunty even more mad. And then she punches Fowler, and then all the hens start fighting in the mud, and of course, while Ginger was busy sulking at the side, was not in part of the fight. This causes Ginger to realize that she and the other chickens can literally just build a plane made from Fowler's pictures and personal recollections of all their huts. So, the chickens renew their hope in a new idea, and they race against time to assemble their plane, while Mr. Tweety is busy fixing the pie machine, and at one time it seems like it's fixed, but then it sprays Miss Tweety with gravy, and Miss Tweety just kicks him of that, so they still get some hope, and they still continue to fix it. But yeah, there's plot points that are obvious to older viewers, like Rocky can't fly. As you get older, you realize that no chickens can fly, and it was only a stunt, or just unoriginal, like Rocky's decision to return. That's also done in Live Revealed. But they provide clues that younger viewers will be delighted to find out in their inevitable rewatches, like the hen house transforming into a plane, and it's a surprise I don't think anybody saw coming. And looking back, that the clues are provided, there's no view of the project during the construction montage, but walls the house, and cinematography set up the surprise very well. It shows construction without raising suspicion of what was being constructed. And right here, guys, this is where you get your noteworthy finale. Where after you see the whole montage, the chickens finish their plane, but also on the bad side, Mr. Tweety has just completed the repairs of the pie machine, and Miss Tweety then comes in, you see some lightning, it's a pretty intimidating entrance, she's like, get the chickens. Which ones? All of them, and doubles up and starts up the machine for rapid speed. And so Mr. Tweety goes to get all the chickens this time, and there's a bit of a problem with this pie machine. Like, if you're making a pot pie, don't you have to skin the chickens first? Not put them in while they're still feathered? Well, then again, this is not real life, and also, if you're going to use all the chickens, you know you'll still have to get more chickens afterwards, right? To still keep up your pie business. Yeah. But then, of course, when Mr. Tweety shows up and finds all his tools that got stolen, the chickens then launch an open revolt. Then, of course, they attack Mr. Tweety, they tie him up and gag him, and put him under one of their huts, and they finally ready the crates. As the chickens start to take off, though, Mr. Tweety, breaks free, and he knocks down the ramp. So Ginger jumps down while Fowler turns the plane around, knocks out Mr. Tweety. And then, of course, Ginger struggles to lift the ramp. Miss Tweety arrives in the axe and tries to kill Ginger. But then, Rocky, we all know, Rocky had a change of heart. When he was biking through, he saw a sign that said Miss Tweety's Pies. He flies over the fence, hits Miss Tweety in her face aboard the tricycle. And Rocky and Ginger grab onto a string of lights, caught on the plane's landing gear. Then, of course, Miss Tweety passed out unconscious because the axe almost hit her neck. But Miss Tweety then regained consciousness. She grabbed onto the lights, and it weighs down the crates. And so Ginger has to head down the string to cut it, but she accidentally ends up losing Babs' scissors she was supplied with. And now she has to have one other way left to cut the lights. And that's basically try to bite into it while having to dodge, Miss Tweety's axe swing. And all while being aided by Rocky, Nick, and Fletcher, who have to give up their prized egg, Nick and Fletcher decided to give up their prize eggs so that they could actually help the chicken that was supplying with them and stuff. Even though they wanted to eat their eggs, they decide to give up their eggs so that they can actually aid the chickens in getting free from Miss Tweety. So I like that right there. But so Ginger tricks Miss Tweety using the hatchet to sever the string, and at first it actually looks like Miss Tweety had cut off Ginger's head right there. And it's a nice little detail right there. Like, it kind of makes it look like she did cut off her head. Where, like, with a little comb on her head makes it look like it's kind of actual blood right there. It almost looks like that, but of course, like, we all know Ginger's not going to die in this movie. Why would they kill off their lead in an actual children's flick? Why would they? But of course, it turns out she actually cut the string and Ginger actually ducked in time. And so Ginger's like, bye-bye, and drops her back into the farm. Miss Tweety falls into the pie machine that literally plugs her into the safety valve, just as like Mr. Tweety has broken free of his ropes, comes in to look for Miss Tweety, and she sees her clogged in the safety valve. And of course, the machine then explodes, destroys the barn, and covers most of the farm with gravy. And then, of course, after that, once he finds Miss Tweety's hair all destroyed, all puffed up, and the dog's licking the gravy, Mr. Tweety, who has literally onto the chickens from the very start, he literally tells Miss Tweety, I told you they was organized. And, like, Miss Tweety's just about to rage at Mr. Tweety again, but Mr. Tweety's done with her shit, so he pushes a huge door onto her, and that should have killed her, but apparently, no. It's because in Hollywood today, nobody stays dead. Because she came back in the sequel, and there's no explained reason why. But that's another review and rant coming up. Because I did see the sequel, and it sucked. So yeah, Ginger and Rocky reconcile, they share a kiss, and all the chickens celebrate, and they keep flying off to their new paradise. And right here we get the ending of the movie. The chickens then find a nice idealistic setting in a bird sanctuary where they can live in comfort and they can raise their new chicks. New chicks who will soon become hens as well. Of course, it's now a new sanctuary, and Rocky and Ginger had fallen in love with each other. They become a couple, and they pretty much head off into the island to enjoy their new life. And meanwhile, on the other hand, we see Nick and Fletcher resting at the side that says Chicken Sanctuary. We all know they tried to have the hens' eggs throughout the film to eat. They discussed their plans of starting their own chicken farm. They can have all the eggs they could eat, and ultimately, though, they're just basically arguing with each other over whether the chicken or egg came first. Like, it's obvious. The chicken comes first. The chicken's supposed to come first. But I think Fletcher's like, no. The egg comes first. No, the chicken comes first. Wait, let's go over this again, and that's the end of the film, but throughout the credits, we can literally hear them still arguing, and Rocky's pretty much like off-screen, hey, fellas, can you keep it down? We're trying to enjoy our new home here. Sorry. Thanks. That's really how the film ends. But that's a little credit scene where you hear them still arguing throughout the credits. Now, would I have any other bad qualities with the film besides the cliche that gets used here? Now, okay, I'll say this. Maybe the plot could be a little formulaic at times, there's also some lines that I'm not really a big fan of, it's literally when Nick and Fletcher are getting their eggs, and it's pretty much just lines like, eggs from heaven, no, from her bum, and also probably not a big fan of their other line, here's the emergency exit. Just put your head between your knees and kiss your bum goodbye. Yeah, those lines I'm not a fan of. It could have really been done without that dialogue. Not a fan of that kind of dialogue, guys. And honestly, the rat characters, they're all right. They don't really serve much of a purpose to the story. Really, because in the first scene, they just disappear. They don't appear again till they meet Rocky. And yeah, they're not really useful till the end. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of the two rats, to be honest. But in all honesty, Chicken Run is an anime classic that should definitely be enjoyed for many generations. So in the end, Chicken Run is totally worth buying and watching for any Aardman fans that want to see the first non-short film they did and how stop-motion films really began. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of Chicken Run. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Chicken Run, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of prison flicks and are interested in a kid-friendly version of one, then totally watch and buy Chicken Run for your collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Chicken Run, I'm going to give Chicken Run a 9 out of 10. There we go, guys. That's it for my review of Chicken Run. And so you're now probably wondering, what's going to be our next review? Well, our next review is going to be an epic rant. And it's for another film from the legendary masterpiece maker himself, Uwe Boll. And you're wondering, no, it's not House of the Dead. No, it's not Blood Rain. I've already did Alone in the Dark. I already did Seed. It's not for any of those films. It's definitely not House of the Dead. That'll happen some other day. Or any of the Blood Rain films. It's for, I think, the last video game film he did. And it's not a horror film one. It's a cringy comedy one. One that stars a lot of actors that I do enjoy. From 2007 or 2008, whatever the fuck it came out. Postal. That one that wasted a lot of great actors that I liked. That one. The one that literally jokes of 9/11. But until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this one and see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.